you. Thank you. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Good evening and welcome to the Liberian Diaspora Forum weekly talk show. My name is Kafuma Krama. I'm your host. We want to thank each and everyone for being here. We want to particularly thank our guests. Now, usually, after the national anthem, I will introduce a guest. There are times when other committed listeners like yourselves on here tonight will help us to invite guests on the show. When that happens, sometimes we do give those persons, the opportunity to introduce the guests that they've invited to speak to all of us, you and myself. So tonight, the person who did the courtesy, gave us the courtesy of inviting our guest tonight, happens to be Mr. George Toto, and he's right here with us. So I'm going to go ahead and open his line so he can introduce the guest we have tonight to all of us, and then shortly after that, we'll begin the show. Mr. Toto?
Yeah.
Good evening and welcome to the show.
Thank you. And also, thank you, Mr. Moderator, and also thanks very much to our DSS of Mawata for accepting the invitation to be part of this show. Member of the forum, I have the honor to present to you Mawata Kamara. She's a great lady that have a passion for Liberia, and she want to make a difference in Liberia. And she's a very educated and sound lady who we're here from tonight. And she had a great experience that she want to break that barrier in Liberia when it comes to protecting women in Liberia, especially with the mission that she want to undertake. So I will urge this audience tonight, listen to her, ask questions, and then after that we can all join her to make her dream successful in Liberia. So I want to say thank you very much, Mr. Moderator, and I will turn the floor back to you.
Thank you. Folks, that was Mr. George Toto briefly speaking about our guest tonight, Ms. Mawata Kamara. Ms. Mawata Kamara is a graduate of Temple University with a degree in nursing and public health. But interestingly, what she's come to talk to us today about has to do with DNA testing. That's something she's been working on. That's something that is dear to her heart. And so all of us know what that would mean. If you live here, you probably have relatives or somebody you know who have had to deal with the high cost of doing DNA outside Liberia. So anybody who is trying to make some effort with regard to bringing DNA testing to Liberia, I think to me that's a good thing, as we'll hear soon from the lady herself. So with that said, I will turn the floor over to Ms. Mawata Kamara, and she will make her brief remark, talk about the work she's done, the work she's doing, the work she intends to do. And then right after that, we will begin entertaining your questions for Ms. Kamara. Ms. Kamara, welcome to the Liberian Diaspora Forum, and the floor is yours, ma'am.
Thank you very much. Thank you for the welcome. Thank you for the invite. I would like to thank both gentlemen for inviting me to the show and your audience for tuning in. Again, my name is Mawata Kamara. I was born in Liberia. Like many Liberians, I came to the U.S. here at an early age, because of the war. My journey with my organization, HEAL, which stands for Holistic Education Advocating for Leadership, started last year. I went to Liberia after 15 years of being here in the States. And when I went back to Liberia, the issue that I had in my mind was rape and sexual assault. Liberia's had an issue with rape and sexual assault for since I've been following it to maybe 2003. It is now, as we know, the highest reported crime in the country. And what's very alarming about the issue of rape and sexual assault in Liberia is the age group that it's happening to. The age group right now, most of the cases in Liberia of rape and sexual assault in Liberia, I'm saying almost half of it occurs to children under the age of 14 years old. Some of the victims are as young as 1.5. Some of them are infants, toddlers, your babies, the ones that you have home curling on the floor, are the ones that are being raped. Just to show some statistics, just to kind of give you an idea. In 2012, there were 917 cases reported by the Liberian National Police. One of the organizations that I'm working with, Think Liberia, reported 487 cases. Of those cases that were reported by the Liberian National Police, only 200 of them made it to court. So less than half of them made it to court. The court says of 487 cases reported by Think Liberia, only 2 of them made it to court. Now, I just want to give the audience an idea of what I'm talking about when I say rape and sexual assault. A lot of these kids, they're not being molested, they're not being touched inappropriately, but they're being raped. And I want to just bring to mind Olivia Zena, one of the famous cases that occurred in Liberia. She was 7 years old when she was raped by her cousin. The rape was so severe, it created a fistula in her stomach. It created a fistula, which is basically a hole that went from her vagina to her anus. The injuries were so severe, she needed a colostomy. That colostomy led to multiple surgeries, and actually she died last year. There are many Olivias in Liberia right now, and the issue we're having is a lot of the times when the victims come out and report it, take it to the police, by the time the case gets to court, they don't have enough evidence. The stories get lost. They don't have the documentations of the cases, and a lot of the times the cases get thrown out. In 2007, 1,475 cases was reported by gender-based violence. Half of those cases were under the age of, the girls were under 13 years old. And I don't even know how to comprehend anybody looking at a child and saying that this is someone that I'm going to rape. And what's also interesting about what's going on in Liberia right now is that we know that during the war, a lot of women were raped. A lot of women, approximately 60 to 90% of the women in the country were raped during the war. A lot of these women were raped by people they didn't know. Now what's going on, the new trend in Liberia is most of the girls that are being raped is being done by people they know, their uncles, their neighbors, the men that always come and visit, the pastor, that kind of thing. So as you can imagine, it's causing a lot of issues within the Liberian families. A lot of the girls, I was in Liberia 3 weeks ago. I visited a shelter. A lot of these girls have stories that you cannot imagine. A lot of them were thrown out by their fathers. A lot of them were thrown out. They can't live in the house anymore because, they came out and told their story, and now their family's mad. So now they're ostracized, and they have to go seek shelter. A lot of them are in the streets. They're prostitutes, and that just is a problem that keeps on giving. Because if a girl comes out and says something about it, they go to the police. They don't have enough. They go to court. They don't have enough evidence. The cases are thrown out, and then the whole family is in disarray now because the girl spoke out, but it's not her fault because something happened to her that was traumatizing. Something happened to her that's terrible, and she needed to say something for her health and for her well-being. So, like I said, a year ago when I went to Liberia, I met a lot of nurses. I spoke with a lot of nurses there. I met with a lot of people that got me thinking along the lines of what can I do to, kind of help fix this problem. I came back to the U.S. I formed a nonprofit, and when I went back to Liberia this time, my goal was to take DNA analysis to Liberia because I feel like this is the missing link in the problem that we continue to have. Because when these men are rape somebody or get accused of being raping somebody, they go to jail. They get released back into our communities. They do the exact same thing that they did before, because now they feel like, somebody reported me, the police caught me, they took me to jail, but nothing happened. I'm back where I started. So now I can go back and do exactly what I did before. It's that whole lawlessness mentality that's what's continuing to bring the problems back into our communities. So right now, as I'm speaking for you, I have a contract with a lab, a well-known lab in the United States, who's willing to take the samples that we collect from Liberia to bring over here to the U.S. to analyze. Now, this is helpful in the sense that while I'm trying, my goal is to eventually build a lab in Liberia, yes, but while I'm trying to raise money and do that, we can use the resources outside of the country to help us establish that, if we take DNA, if we do build a lab in Liberia, it's going to work. I am more than positive when you go on the ground. One thing that I'm very proud of the nurses and the healthcare professionals that are in the ground in Liberia is that they want to see this happen so badly. They want to see it happen. They want to see, they've been longing for it to happen. They know it's the missing link. They know that they need this for the country. They know that they see these kids come in, and some of them are so young and helpless, and to see the people that did these things to them going back into the street is heartbreaking. So we want to see this project happen. I'm coming to the Liberian community tonight. I hope, I don't know where our audience is coming from, but I would think that DNA forensics is unique to every human being. It's the missing link, because if a child comes and said, person A raped me, and person A denies it, that child, we're going to be looking for certain things on that child. We're going to be looking for fluids. We're going to be looking for hair. We're going to be, if the person scratches the child while they were raping the child, we can take those samples and send it to the lab. And the lab is going to be able to tell us whether or not that the DNA from on that child is on that person that the child accused. So in a way, it's there to protect the children, yes, but it's also there to protect the person that was accused. Because if there was a case where someone was wrongly accused, we can also get that person. That person won't go to jail for the wrong reason. As we all know, the law that President Sirleaf passed in 2005, someone can go to jail for the rest of their life for rape. So this is a tool that will not only be useful for putting the guilty to jail, but also acquitting the innocent as well.
Okay. Hello?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay. So that's it for your introductory remark. Is that correct?
Well, I have much more to say. Trust me, I can talk about this all night. But
okay, you go ahead. While you do that, let me invite the audience to begin making entries. Our question line is open.
Okay.
So I'm talking to the audience here. So feel free at any time to dial *61. If anything the guest says that raise red flag or that grabs your attention, feel free to dial *61. And then we will recognize your question, and hopefully she will make a stop and address herself to that. But yeah, go ahead. We are learning a lot. Yeah, keep going. Okay.
And I just wanted to make in my introduction, you mentioned that this is something, a tool to protect women and stuff. I always like to just clarify this. It's not that you're wrong, but when it comes to rape and sexual assault, especially of children, this is not a women's right issue. This is not it's not anything limited to gender. This is a community issue. When someone is raped, there's a whole there's a psychological part of it. And the way that it's happening in Liberia, where a lot of these girls are being raped, some of these girls get raped, they go home to the same home, and it happens again because the person that did it is still in that home. It's creating a mentality that it's okay for something like this to happen to them. And I want a lot of everyone listening tonight to just kind of put this in their mind that these girls are someday going to become the wives of your sons. These girls are going to become the mother of your children. These girls are going to be the teachers in your neighborhoods. These girls are going to be the women that you see in the marketplace. And it's important to know that they are your community. They are the future of your country. And if you continue, if such a crime is happening to them where they feel like they are powerless, that is going to be a part of the future of Liberia someday. So it's really important for us to know that this is not just a women rights issue. This is a community issue, and that's why I'm coming to the Liberian community, because we, as a community, need to sit down, figure out how we're going to solve this problem.
Okay. We have some questions. Maybe why, if you take some of them, you can address them along the way as you speak to an issue that you are so much passionate about. Before I take the caller here, I like to, what an interesting topic and what a good time for us to be talking about it. I say interesting time because I was reading a story on Front Page Africa yesterday. I don't know if you've seen the story. There's a Lebanese man that is in custody right now. He's accused of having had sex with children. I mean, I wouldn't say young girls, but God, they said some as young as, I believe, I don't know, 5, 6, 7 years old. And what's really alarming about it, as I read the story, is the fact that he had a bunch of them together as he tried to videotape it. Issues like that, I think those are the kind of things he's talking about. But here's my question, though. If you identify DNA testing as the missing link in the whole process, that means I would assume that you have absolute faith in the justice system if DNA testing was available. Is that what you're saying? Because some of us, I just came from some Coalition for Justice meeting tonight, and a lot of the things that I heard from both speakers and Liberian audience was that people seem to have very little confidence in the justice system in Liberia. And so even with DNA testing being present, how much different do you think that will make?
Now, let me do some clarification. Now, when I say DNA is the missing link, I'm not saying it's the only thing that we need. It's kind of it's going to add on to the puzzle, but the rest of the puzzle still needs to be straightened out. Now, we with a team of nurses and other healthcare professionals back in Liberia, we come up with a system. Well, we didn't come up with a system. The system is what they're using in South Africa, and it's actually it can be back all the way up here to the United States in the court system. It's called a one-stop system. In some of the clinics where we want to introduce Think Liberia, we stand for touching hands in means of kindness. It's an organization that's been dealing with rape and gender-related issues for years now in Liberia, and in my opinion, are one of the best. And with this one-stop system, the idea is to have, in a clinical setting, to have all of the different parties that you would need to collect data, to deal with the police. Everybody's going to be in the system. So, for example, if a girl comes in and I'm the nurse, and she tells me that she's raped, I'm going to know to collect certain things off of her. And within that same clinic, we're going to have a social worker who's going to find out things like where she lives, how we can contact her, who her family is, that she needs to go to her home, is the person that raped her, but they're still there. And we're also going to have a police officer in that exact setting. That police officer is going to initiate things like, okay, the girl told us who raped her, so now we need to go back into the community and find out who that person is. So I'm the nurse collecting the DNA evidence. That police officer is going to find the person that raped the girl, and everything kind of comes together within that very single setting, because some of the problems that they're having in Liberia right now is this. When somebody comes and lays a complaint, that person has to chase everybody. They have to go to the police. They have to go to the social worker. They have to go to a lawyer. They have to chase everybody. And most oftentimes, the families don't want to deal with it, because now they're spending their money to go to all these parties, and by the time they go to the courthouse, they may not even the case is thrown out anyways. That's one issue. And I think that when we do it that way, we eliminate a lot of we create a smaller team within these different facilities. As far as the Liberian court, as far as I went to the police office. I spoke to individuals in gender ministries, and I even sat down in a meeting with some of the NGOs in the country to kind of talk about some of the problems within the justice system. I honestly think I'm a nurse. I could be wrong, but I honestly think that the best way to deal with this issue is implementing something like the one-stop system, because I feel like if you take DNA analysis to Liberia, first of all, one thing my organization want to do is educate everyone, from the police officers to the judges to the teachers to the nurses. We've actually designed a program where we can take a certifications to universities, where everyone that's graduating with any kind of science degree, teachers, anyone that's going to do anything with children needs to know what DNA analysis is. And as far as the justice system is concerned, DNA analysis is taking accountability. When someone rapes a child and the DNA analysis matches the DNA on that child, now what is who is going to prove otherwise? Because DNA is pretty accurate. I think everybody knows universally that this is not something that you can discuss and say, I didn't do it. The problem we're having with a lot of these men is they're saying, I didn't do it. So if I, as a nurse, take the sample to a lab and it says that the DNA analysis on the DNA on the child matches the DNA from the man, and that arrest is not made, then I think we as a Liberian people have the right to question.
Okay, let me take our first caller for the night. Folks, if you're just joining us, and I know many of you have, we want to welcome you to the Liberian Diaspora Forum weekly talk show tonight. We have with us Honorable Ms. Mawata Kamara, a graduate of Temple University in Pennsylvania, Philadelphia. She's a registered nurse and a public health worker. She's very passionate about issues of rape, particularly against children in Liberia. She's working tirelessly to see that we do have DNA testing in Liberia as a way of preserving evidence. So you've been listening to her. If you have any question, comment, or concern, by all means, please dial *61, or you can text your question to 612-203-3820, and I will read your question over to her. So take the first caller for the night. I don't see your name. Your last 4 digits is 1222-1222. Please tell us your name, where you're calling from, and your question for Ms. Kamara.
Hi, my name is Roberta Williams, and I was actually calling to ask Ms. Kamara, how are this DNA testing being funded? Who's funding it? And has she able to get the government support? Because that's a big thing in Liberia. If you don't have the government support on what you are doing, nothing gets done, and you can't get anywhere. So she would need the government support. And we all know most of the government men, quote unquote, or maybe females, are the ones that have little things that they're playing with. They may not consider it rape, but it's still a crime because they're dealing with underage girls. So I need to know how she's been funded with the DNA, and has she got the government support, and what she needs, what does she need from the Liberian public, because I was also in Liberia 3 weeks ago for 3 weeks, and I can tell you the big shots, people like her, they don't want her there because, for one thing, she's messing up their style. They can't play with their little thing, and that irritates me, that pisses me off. But in the meantime, if we don't have the money to fight them or the support from them, then we need to back off and find another way to get around it and still work within the system. So I want to know how she's getting around it and working within the system, because I know they are not
supporting the idea.
Yeah, they are not supportive of her. I know that for a fact.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Kamara, did you get that question? Yeah.
Thank you.
How are you getting your funding? Do you have the support of the Liberian government?
Thanks for the question. I'm going to break it down because you said so much in that question, and actually that was one of my biggest concerns when I went to Liberia. And when I got there, I met with organizations. First of all, I want to say, yes, I've met with the Ministry of Health when I was there. I went, like I said, I went to the dinner administrator at the police when I went to the police station. And then I also met with the Female Lawyer Association of Liberia. All three of those organizations were 100%, if not even, diving in to the idea of DNA analysis. This includes some of the nurses and stuff like that. As far as when you say government, I didn't meet with the president, if that's what you meant. And I will also tell you this, when I met with the individuals from these organizations, they also told me the exact same thing that you were telling me, that this is going to be a challenge. With anything in Liberia right now, I'm very much aware of how challenging it can be, and it will be. But I'm going to tell you right now, as a Liberian person, that's not something that's going to deter me, because the issue here is not me. The issue here is not how hard the struggle is going to be. The issue is when I went into a barber shop, so a lady just randomly told me that someone 1.5 years old was raped. And that is the issue, and that is my focus. So I'm going to tell you again, there's going to be barriers. I'm very much aware, and I'm very much aware that, people there don't like to see someone young and going there with all these ideas and stuff. Some people aren't very accepting to change. I understand that. But there's enough people in Liberia right now. There's enough mothers in Liberia right now. There's enough nurses. There's enough lawyers that want this problem to be eradicated and want to find solutions to the problem. So the government serves the people, and if enough people stop speaking up, they're going to listen. That is my attitude right now. As far as funding for this program, right now I'm doing a couple of things. I have a website up, www.healorg.com. I invite everybody to go there. I would like to see a lot of Liberians digging into the pocket to fund this. That's one thing. I'm also right now working with another organization. Well, not an organization. The creator of Small Thing is a documentary actually about Olivia Zena that I mentioned earlier. I'm helping them take the documentary around. We just had a viewing at Temple University. Part of the proceeds from those organizations, from those events rather, is going to go towards the project. Another thing is I have applied to a number of grants, applied to a number of big names. I have a grant proposal, and I'm applying to a lot of grants and going to university. I have a couple of churches that I've been going to and talking to people. So a lot of private funding is what's going to go behind this project.
Okay, thank you. It does look like the last caller has made a new entry to ask a follow-up question, so we'll get to her shortly here. But I would think, though, I would think as much as the issue seems so tough to get around, I would think that considering the fact that we have the first female president in Africa, in Liberia as well, somebody who is very much committed to protecting the right of everyone, especially the right of women. Not that long ago, we had a minister of gender sitting right where you are. I mean, right on the same show when she came to New York to attend Women International Conference. She talked about a lot of good things that Ellen has done or continue to do in order to protect, the right of women, girls as well. So, is it that difficult? I think this got to be the best time if it's going to be at all, especially when you make the case that you continue to make. Don't you think?
I agree, and I would like to say this administration has done certain things like Criminal Court E. Criminal Court E is a special court that deal with just the gender-based issues, and they deal with a lot of rape cases. And some of the things that they implemented was I actually went to the courthouse when I was there. They have a screen because a lot of times before, some of the healthcare workers and some of the girls that were raped didn't want to testify because they didn't want to face the person being accused. So they actually created a room where the victims can sit in the back, and there's a mirror there where the victims don't have to face the person that's being accused or being the person that's on trial. So this administration has done a number of things that I think that the leading towards, protecting the victims in these cases. So, like I said, I was warned when I got to the country. A lot of people say, we agree with this idea. We think it's a phenomenal idea. Bring it to Liberia if you can. But like the caller said, you're going to have some difficulties. So, it's not with any change. I can't think of anything that's been done or changed without any difficulties. So.
Okay, thank you. We will let the same caller ask a follow-up question. Then, folks, please dial *61. If you have any question, comment, or concern, your question line is open. Dial *61, and we'll take your question. 1222. Welcome back to the forum. What's your follow-up question?
My follow-up question is, number one, does she have the Liberian government on her side in this? Because one thing I can tell you, if you don't have the Liberian government on your side, no matter what are you trying to implement or whatever, and this is from experience, it will not happen. That's number one. Number two, who is funding this? Because DNA testing is not cheap. And I know that the Liberian government will not fund or will not pay for DNA testing. So you have to have funding outside of that. And doing a website, getting a website started and blah, 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 that's all good and well. But if nobody have actually make the initiative to start giving money and doing things, it just seems far-fetched. I hear what you're saying. I agree with what you're saying, that, we need to do something with our children being raped, especially by officials that are making the rules that say, don't rape my child, but it's okay for me to do it, but, nobody else should do it. I have a problem with that if you don't see them as being the problem. Because if you look at the spectrum, and I don't know where you're getting your sources from, but if you look at the spectrum, most of the crime that committed in Liberia, especially crime like rape and corruption or whatever, is from upper management, from in their government. It's not from the everyday people. So you need to I need to know if you're really ready to take on that spectrum, because you will have to. If you go out to Liberia and say, "Yeah, I'm here for DNA company, and we're gonna pull all the people that we find to be, rapists, and the DNA test proves that they're rapists," first of all, you have to wonder, okay, how many of these people have been, are gonna be bribed? How many of them the government going to bribe, or the government official, or the employees of the government, or the everyday person that has money going to bribe to get their name out of that rapist list? Then you have to be with the everyday person. How many of those people that they're going to just dump their problem on and say, "Oh, he did it," and and they're going to bribe that cop to say, "Yeah, he did it," So stuff like DNA is great. You are wonderful. I take my hat off to you. But the people you have in Liberia that needs to help you to accomplish this are the people that committing the crime. They are the people that committing the crime. So
okay.
I really feel for you. No. I really listen to me. I really feel for you. I'm on your side, and I really feel for you because you have so much to work with because you have the people that you're depending on to help you get this established in Liberia will be the same group, few of them in the midst, that be the one to say, oh, that girl, I don't want her here, mama. She's just going to miss the left of my program. You know, that my little thing over there, anybody can find here and say, my little thing, I can't have my little thing. They don't consider it rape, honey pie.
Okay. Thank you. We'll leave it at Thank you.
Well, okay. I'm going to take it from the top. I think she said a lot, but I'm going to take it from the top and try to answer everything. When she said, "Is the government behind you?" I think I mentioned before that I met with the Ministry of Health, and I met that's a government agency, and then I met with the police, the gender ministry. That's also a part of the government. So I wasn't sure whether when she said government, she was talking about the actual president or who, but those two are different. They are a part. Those two ministries are part of the government, and the individuals that work within those areas were appointed by the government. So yes, there are quite a few of different. Not only individuals, but different branches of the government that do want to see this project happen. So, like I said, I listened to a lot of things that you said, but just a couple of things I want to comment on. You mentioned that a lot of the people committing the crime are government officials. Front Page Africa in February released an article where 280 people were released because they by the court because they didn't have enough evidence. None of those individuals work for the government. A lot of the men creating these crimes don't work within the government. These are men, like I mentioned before, that the victims know hand in hand. A lot of these girls live in places like West Point. They live on DuPont Road. A lot of them don't live with government officials. If they're being raped by people they know, then those people are clearly not government officials because they don't live in those girls' neighborhoods. So we need to clarify that as well. She touched quite a few there. And then I mentioned before that a lot of the funding for this is going to be private funding. And the website is good. And, hey, you're a Liberian. If you want to see it happen, I invite you to please go on the website and make a donation. When we think about this issue, we can think about 1,000,001 ways why it wouldn't work. As anything that you think about, you can think about 1,000,001 ways why it wouldn't work. I need Liberians to start thinking that it can work, and that's the only way it's going to work.
Okay, all right. I think by extension, if she says that a lot of the men the men will not support the effort simply because the very men that you depend on, you expect to support the idea and the rapists. I think by extension in Liberia, they may not be the one in government themselves, but it could be that they have connection with people in government. And in Liberia, that is sometimes just as good as being in government yourself. But I just wanted to add that to what she said. What I'd like to know, though, the whole DNA testing thing.
And if I may comment.
Yeah, I'll let you come in here. Is there what does it cost? Do we have any idea as to what would it actually cost to start doing DNA testing in Liberia today, tomorrow, or next week? What's like it? What does it cost?
Absolutely. There are certain different parts that you have to consider. We have to consider the fact that we're going to ship the results out of the country. Now, one thing that the analysis itself is $800 to do the DNA analysis with the lab that we have. We have a contract with one lab right now, pending another contract with another DNA analysis company. Now, as far as the DNA kits itself, which comes with everything, the materials you need for the swab, to collecting hair, to collecting clothing, and everything like that, that is $16 US dollars. Everything I'm saying is in US dollars, by the way. and the shipment of the materials in and out of the country. That varies basically depending on the size of whatever. If you have clothing there, if you have just the original, if you just have the kit, obviously that's going to cost a little bit less or more, depending. It depends on basically how large the sample size is. But for the DNA analysis, the case itself, that is to collect the sample off of the girl and the person who raped her, that's $800. That is just from one company. Now,
$800?
Mhm.
Wow. Mhm.
Yes, it's expensive. There's not something that I'm going to deny or lie or say anything, but I would also like to mention that right now, this is an issue that, like you mentioned before, this administration has put a lot of money into. Since 2003, I've been following this. Some of the proposals that we're reading for gender-based, and some of them are millions of dollars. You read these proposals, and all of the interventions that's going into this problem, they've put millions and millions of dollars into this issue. But the issue is still there. Right now, as I speak, there's a lab being conducted at one of the hospitals in Liberia, but the lab is only going to be testing spermicide. Now, from a healthcare professional point of view, if you're testing spermicide, you're only going to be able to look at a child and tell that there's sperm on the child. You don't know whose sperm it is. That's another opportunity that was used for another opportunity where we could take those resources and put into this solution.
Okay. Let's hear. Okay, go ahead. I'll tell you what done. Go ahead, sorry.
No. It's fine. And also I want to mention to the caller that called and had the questions of whether or not this is going to be allowed by the government. Ghana, our neighboring country, Ghana, they have a DNA analysis lab.
I know that's where Liberia.
Right. They have in the Liberia. There's been cases, 2 documented cases so far, where they've used Ghana for the analysis to be used in the Liberian court.
Okay. Let's hear from some callers here. Let's hear from other people. 0755. Please tell us your name, where you're calling from, and your question or concern for Ms. Kamara. 0755.
Yeah. Thank you very much. Thank you. This is Siaka Kuma. I'm calling from Davie, Pennsylvania.
Thank you. Welcome to the show.
Yeah. Well, though I just coming in, but I critically listened to Madam Kamara. She spoke well, but I don't really know whether is this a profit organization or non-profit organization, because
it's a non-profit.
A non-profit. Okay, thank you very much. Because I listened to you mention of in order for someone to have this test, I think you have to pay a certain amount of money. And I know Liberia started right now as relate to paying such an amount for tax and what have you, because I would like to say perhaps right now, I don't know what Liberia really need, what Liberian people need a DNA test, because they also say about what would do with this one and give them at least when something like they coming free, maybe they'll be encouraged to do. That is mine, own take right now. Because I just coming from Liberia too, not too long, just this Liberia, So I really want to advise that if you really request for donors, saying it's a non-profit organization, you rally around, read those proposals. That you have a target people, especially maybe a target country, especially your country, for DNA tests and what have you, so you can donate that to Liberian people. So I think when that is done, maybe they will really receive you, accordingly. But with going as a non-profit organization, and before you can get a DNA test, you pay a certain amount of money to that organization, where I don't think really accept you right now with that notion. So that's a little advice, to Madam Kamara, because I know that when people are yanni, So thank you very much,
Thank you. Yeah.
Thank
so
you.
Kamara, do you want to add anything to that?
Yeah, it was never my intention to charge any of these any of the victims. This is a nonprofit organization. The services would be rendered free.
Okay. So, wait a minute. So, if you are successful in introducing DNA testing in Liberia, then the DNA testing will be done for free?
Yeah, so the rape cases. Yeah.
Or just for the rape cases, not just to be only for the rape
that
cases.
That the DNA for the rape cases, and I want to also put out there that this even it's a nonprofit organization, yes, but the caller mentioned that I don't know if he mentioned something about being able to afford it or whether the Liberian population can use it. Liberians are using DNA right now. They're using forensic science through the U.S. Embassy. It's $1,500. I'm sorry. It's true. I believe the U.S. Embassy, when I went there, if you want to find out the maternity of your child, I actually went someone who went through the process. If you're from the U.S. and you want to prove that your child in Liberia is yours, you can pay a fee of $1,500 to have that done for you. So this is not something that's new to Liberians. The technology is already there. We're just using it for a different purpose.
Okay. So we'll take another caller here. 7962. Your name, where you calling from, your question for Ms. Kamara. 7962.
Yeah, good evening.
Good evening.
My name is Kamara, Abu Kamara. I'm calling from New York.
Welcome, Mr. Kamara.
Yeah, I would like to express thanks and appreciation. This is a kind of a partnership we are looking forward to. She has touched on several issues. I'm just trying to, allay the fear of the first handshake about the possibility of actually conducting the analysis in the absence of adequate funding. But I think with the government on the ground, like she has said, she met officials of the Ministry of Health and the Gender Ministry and the police. It's not necessarily about government pumping money into those kind of private initiatives. I think my view is that the government should be able to create an enabling environment for the realization of people's potential, like what Sister Kamara is trying to do. We know that the police, our national police, has a special unit whereby they, have a specific area that cater to the needs of, sexually abused women and children. And so with that, the corporates can be, compelled to appear before any established system so that they can be subjected to DNA analysis. In that way, the government is facilitating the process. So I think it is a very laudable initiative. The sisters should be encouraged to take this project to Liberia, and those of us who have the willing, heart and ability to assist her should do so. That's my own. Thank you very much for this initiative.
Hello?
Hello?
Hello? I'm here.
Hello?
I wasn't sure I lost the call.
Do you want to add to that? Yeah.
Oh, thank you. Thank you very much. And then I agree with you. I agree with everything that you say. Unfortunately, I cannot attest to whether or not the government will be able to put money into this project. But like I said, this is a nonprofit, and how nonprofit work is, we find funding to go towards the cost. So I will continue. I hear everything, every negative or everything that I've heard so far about the money. Everybody, is not something I haven't heard before. And like I said, this is something that I started years ago, and I'm here now, and I'm speaking to people on, getting feedback from the Liberian people. So thank you for your encouragement. I won't be stopped.
Thank you. We'll hear from the next caller. And interestingly, the last caller was Mr. Kamara, and this other caller is also Mohammed Kamara. That's interesting. Mr. Mohammed Kamara, would you please tell us where you're calling from and your question for Ms. Kamara?
All right. Thank you, Mr. moderator. My name is Kamara Mohammed, and I'm calling from Dallas, Texas. I want to thank, first of all, this Mawata Kamara for undertaking this great initiative. I want to first of all tell you that you're going to hear a lot of saying that it's difficult, but there's nothing difficult. That's never happened before. So I want to first start by commending you for taking on this initiative to bring alleged rapists, that will actually cause, raping in Liberia or maybe stop it. But as far as bringing DNA to Liberia to be implemented into the justice system, is this only going to be for rape or for other? Are you going to use it for establishing paternity tests as well? People who will impregnate a woman and basically find a way to say that the usual way that, hey, I'm not the one. Will it be used in cases of that nature?
Kamara, Miss Kamara,
yeah.
do you?
Am I free to? Okay. I want to know that my organization, in terms of providing the service free for the intended purpose is to deal with the rape cases. Now, I mentioned before I want to build a DNA lab in Liberia. Now, if you build a lab, you're gonna, have. I'm not going to limit it to just the rape cases. There's a lot of things we can use DNA analysis for crime scenes. Yes, we can use it for paternity. Yes. There's a lot of other uses that we can use DNA for. I'm not going to limit it to just this. So to answer your questions, yes, I am going to consider using it to other things once we get to that point. But once we're starting off, I want to make it clear that, this is the main purpose of why I am particularly passionate about taking DNA analysis to Liberia. But no, I am not going to limit my cost to the uses of DNA analysis just for this one purpose.
Thank you. Folks, once again, if you're just joining us, welcome to the Liberian Diaspora Forum Weekly Talk Show. We have Ms. Mawata Kamara with us talking about the probability, the possibility of bringing DNA testing to Liberia and to the Liberian people. So if you have any question, comment, or concern, please dial *61. We'll take the next caller, 5500. I believe this is Mr. Randolph Jabate from New York. If you are, welcome to the Liberian Diaspora Forum. Your question for Ms. Kamara.
This is Asumana Randolph from New York. Honorable Kamara, I am happy that you are advocating for DNA process in Liberia. But what I'm happy about, you have already done the best, because introducing the idea, just the advocacy alone, is commendable for the fact that we as Liberians need to start doing research in DNA process. And so in this case, it's not only the rape and human being, but there's so many things that we can use the DNA methods for. And in the technology now, medical technology as well as the technology of science, DNA is one of those things that are used widely around the globe. And we can think about teaching the high school, even those that are in the kindergarten, about what DNA is, so that they can be thinking about doing research in that area. So just by talking about it, it's a great idea. You have accomplished a lot just by talking about it. So I will encourage and I will support you in this process. So I will go to their website and give as much as I can, because this is it. It is all about educating our people. If it doesn't work, that the mission, even if the mission does not work and you do not have a lab, but we are talking about it, and hopefully the media can carry it through, and then the next generation of Liberians can then take over. You may not be able to accomplish all that you set to do, but it's the beginning. So thank you.
Thank you.
I want to tell you that in one of our workshops in 2010, we actually discussed the DNA of potato. And then just to look at the DNA of potato, we talk about that. We want to look at the DNA of saliva. We want to look at the DNA of other things. So we did that. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Jawata. Ms. Kamara?
Yes.
There goes your first pledge for the night. He promised to go to your site and there. So congratulations.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Thank you. Please do. And actually, there's a place on the website for you to contact me. I am currently based very close to New York right now. I would love to, sit down, have a conversation, and talk more about, what you're doing, because you seem to be very interested in the subject matter as well. One of the things I mentioned earlier is we want to teach the Liberian population about DNA. We just don't want to take it there. And so one of the things I'm working, my team and a lab that that I've partnered with is we're going to design a certification course where we're going to go to Liberia and teach the main people that are in charge of educating the youth, the professors, the nurses, the judges, and even the people involved in the judicial system. So we want to take this to universities. We want to take this to schools. We're not just limited to taking the technology there, because we realize that taking the technology there is one thing, but we need to educate the general public about what this technology is and how it can change our lives.
Okay, thank you. We got two follow-up callers here. We will get to both of them. Let's start with Mr. Abu Kamara again. Mr. Kamara, welcome back to Liberian Diaspora Forum. Your follow-up question.
No, I was just trying to clarify that I was not saying that the undertaker of this project to depend on the government solely for funding. I was saying that one of the duties of the government is to create an enabling environment for the realization of people's potential. So she was talking about, visiting the police. Now, I say if police can bring a corporation, and then make this, to subject themselves to all the, investigation, that in a way the government is actually assisting the process. That's what I was trying to say. And that is to, take courage and then, move forward with our program. That's what I was trying to clarify.
Thank you for the clarification.
Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Kamara?
Yes, I'm here.
Hello? Are you there? Yeah. I do have a text message question here.
Okay.
And the question reads, are you confident that with DNA testing mechanism available in Liberia that child rapists will be prosecuted? Do you have trust in the justice system? I think that's the question we begin with. So now someone else suggests test that in. Do you trust and believe in the justice system that once DNA testing was in Liberia and DNA test is done to prove that XYZ rape, a 6 or 5 years old child, and then what next with a broken criminal justice system?
Now, first of all, when people say broken justice system, there's so many different things within the justice system that we have to look at. So one thing right now that I continue from my research, what I continue to hear is insufficient evidence. Insufficient evidence. If you go back and read the articles, if you go to Liberia right now, you deal with a lot of the social workers, you deal with a lot of the workers that are working with these cases. What I continue to hear is insufficient evidence. We don't have enough evidence. And with the population that you're dealing with, little children, in that age group, little children, when something traumatic happens to them, they tend to forget very quickly, or they either or block it out of their mind. So 3 months from now, when you go to trial and that child is sitting there, they may not recall every detail of what happened to them. That's what we need, something that's going to hold people accountable beyond the hearsay, beyond what the victims say and what the man is saying, or what the accused is saying. That is what we want to bring to the justice system, accountability. This person right in front of us, we know they did it because the DNA analysis said so. Now, with that accountability and people are not going to jail, then we have a right to question.
Okay. So
that is what I have. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I understand your ideology quite well. Basically, let's do first thing first. Let's do DNA testing and prove that XYZ did this, and if they don't go to jail from that point, then we have a different issue to address.
Right, because now the issue that we're dealing with, a lot of the judges are throwing the cases out because they're saying that we didn't collect enough evidence. There's not enough evidence to say that this man actually did it. So now we're going to prove that he did it.
Okay, thank you. We'll take some more callers. 9271, 9271. I believe this is George Toto. Mr. Toto, welcome to the Liberian Diaspora Forum Weekly Talk Show. Your question.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Moderator, and also thank you to our guests. I just wanted to throw a comment on. I've been listening to most of the concern and questions. Most especially the first caller, when she makes some statement that if the government don't support the process, it won't work. I think what I just wanted to say that I think this is a great initiative Mawata is taking. Let everyone all have that faith and hope that, that this process will work in Liberia. Whether the government supported the process or not, but with the support of the Liberian population across Liberia, I think this will be a process that will be able to work and to prove a lot of instances in Liberia, especially in the justice system, where they say they don't have the evidence to show whether somebody committed a crime. The proof will be there that will show that the person committed a crime. If the justice system does not prosecute that person, then they will know that the flaw that is in the justice system in Liberia. So they all have the hope and be optimistic and support her through the process. So that will be a great difference in Liberia. That's what I just wanted to add.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Toto. Thank you. Ms. Kamara, do you care to add or take the next question?
I want to thank Mr. Toto again for bringing me, to the show and for his comment. And I just wanted to say that, I came here with the hope of asking, particularly the Liberian men to, really I want to see the Liberian men really get involved with this process, and not just because they're men, but because a lot of times when I go to places, I often have the women coming up to me and saying something. I just want to comment that I think most of the callers so far has been men. So I just want to say thank you to you all for doing what I even came here to ask you to do in the first place, because, like I said, this is a community issue, and I think we all need to get involved. But Liberia right now, Liberians have two choices, okay? We've went through this horrible civil war. We're recovering. We have two choices. We can sit down and keep saying the government is this, the government is that, is not going to work, is not going to work. Or we can stand up and try to find solutions to our problems. This is a solution to one of our problems that is embarrassing us. This is a solution to one of our problems that is really hurting the females, the young women, our future. And we can sit down and say that the government is not. We can sit down and say we're not going to have enough money, or we can actually stand up and try to see this work. And I'm telling you right now, the Liberians, the nurses, the people that I went to, that I met with last, 2-3 weeks ago, want to see this happen. Now, it's up to us whether we want to take the pessimistic standpoint or we want to be optimistic and say this is going to work because we Liberians want to see it work and we're going to stand behind it.
Okay. Since George Toto made reference to one of our first callers today, and she's been here waiting to make another follow-up, I just asked that she please make it brief so we can accommodate other people. 1222, please keep it brief. 1222, welcome back to the show.
Hey, my problem that I'm having with the whole conversation and dialogue is, number one, she hasn't really told us where her resources is coming from. That is very important because you cannot depend on the Liberian government. And two, she's working with the Liberian government. That's wonderful. That's great. I hope they are in sync with her because I would really like to see them in sync with a lot of different progress and projects and whatever. But my point is, if they're in sync with her only to keep her at bay, then I have a problem with that. Okay, maybe they're done. Maybe they're done. Maybe she's legit. And I love her initiative. I really, really do. And I would like to see it go far, 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 far. You saw that little girl on my webpage that was raped. They tore her vagina apart. Tore it apart. They didn't just rape her, they tore her vagina apart to get in. And yes, I'm still angry. I'm still angry, and I will be angry until I see or hear that the guy that raped her went to jail. But guess what? He hasn't even been prosecuted yet. He hasn't even been whatever yet to say that, I raped somebody. Oh, yeah, I admit. Oh, no, I'm guilty, whatever. He hasn't even gone through that yet. I can't. We expect her to live in the same area with this guy? Who are we?
Okay. I'm going to leave it there.
DNA is very expensive. DNA is extremely expensive. There's no way the Liberian government going to pay for DNA to talk about, to validate their own people raping the little girls. They're not going to pay for that.
Let's leave it there. We're going to leave it there.
Okay.
Ms. Kamara?
Hi. I just want to bring in the midst of everything that you're hearing, I'm also sensing your emotions from the conversation that you're trying to have with us, and I sense that you're very passionate about this this issue. And I'm going to say again, we are a 501c3. HEAL is a 501c3. And which means that it's a nonprofit organization. The funding for nonprofits comes from things like fundraising and support from individuals such like yourself, individuals that are passionate about the issue. And I'm going to tell you now, if you go to the website and you put your information into that computer, I will personally contact you. Since you seem so passionate about the issue and you are confident that the government is not going to support, I'm going to ask you to support. Okay, I'm going to ask you and people that you know that are also passionate about the issue to come forth and support this project and make sure it happens. Since the government is not going to do it, U.S. or Liberian, I want to see you do it.
Thank you. Next caller, 4767, 4767. I believe this is Mr. Keita from Rochester. 4767, please tell us your name, where you're calling from, and your question for Ms. Kamara.
Okay, my name is Kiatama from Minnesota.
Oh, I apologize, Mr. Kiatama.
That's all right. First of all, I'd like to thank your guest for such a wonderful initiative. I think it's very impressive. And I think we need many of those kind of initiatives. But I'm also troubled that she could cause a serious social unrest in Liberia with this kind of approach. And one of the things is that someone told me a long time ago, if you do DNA tests, there'll be a lot of parents who think no kids are their kids. They will end up finding out those children are not their children. Because DNA test has not existed in Liberia. So what's going to happen is that As an example, we want Mrs. Kamara to start the initiative or do her own DNA test to prove paternity and say, look at what I've done. Because I think that if you go Liberia, a lot of parents, families with 4 or 5 women in our cultural tradition, which is acceptable, and they realize that these kids are not my kids, these things is done. There's everybody going to try and make sure that they feel comfortable that these kids are their kids. It's going to lead to a lot of chaos and confusion. Now, at the legal aspect, and I think it's useful for the legal process where someone wants to prove guilt or innocence, and I think that is useful. But I think a nonprofit organization should focus on making it a law. With a law, the judge has a lot of leverage and leeway to say, you know what, since I cannot prove guilt or innocence simply by account of evidence which could be lacking, and one scientific evidence which is irrefutable could be a DNA testing. So what we would do DNA testing. But these policies, even in America, they are supported by who's going to pay for it? Because it is costly. So who's going to pay for it? So I think when these kind of proposals are advanced, the cost of implementing them is all part of the proposal. If that cost is missing, then I think is burying our heads in the sand and actually being unrealistic and trying to transplant Western models of proven innocence or guilt in a cultural context that may not be appropriate. That's my question and my comments.
Thank you, Mr. Ketama.
Thank you. One thing you mentioned was the social duress, and you also mentioned in that comment that DNA analysis does not exist in Liberia. It does. Like we mentioned before, you can find out who the father or the mother of your child is right now in Liberia. If you have $1,500, you can find out. By going to, you can either do it to Ghana, like the moderator mentioned earlier, you can do it to the U.S. Embassy. So yes, that is very possible. And if Liberians are concerned that they're going to have issues with proving, and when people find out who the real fathers or the mothers of their kids are, and I highly recommend that people start being faithful to their partners. Maybe that's the solution to that problem, because what you're saying is what you're saying indirectly is we should not advance our society because of issues within our homes that we need to deal with. If the issue is that people are cheating on their partners and they don't want to find out who the father and the mother, maybe that's a completely different issue, and that shouldn't be something that's standing in the way of a technology that's gonna bring so many other blessings to Liberia.
Okay. So before I take the next caller, though, I want to know: have you done any research at all in Liberia at any level to know what percentage of Liberian people truly believe in DNA result? Because, like yourself, I was in Liberia not that long ago, and the issue of DNA has come up a lot lately, especially as relate to this resettlement, DV resettlement thing. And like our last speaker said, there have been too many issues of DNA tests, proving that certain children don't belong to certain parents. And so those families have found a way to get together as dismissing, and I mean completely dismissing DNA result as saying that it's not right, it's not accurate. They just don't believe in it. So do you know how many people, what percentage of our population truly believe in DNA result?
No, but let me elaborate on that. No, but what we're starting at right now, what we want to use DNA analysis for, and I just want everyone to not get away from that, is to start with the judicial process. We're talking about the court. And like I mentioned before we take DNA analysis to the court, we want to make sure that the lawyers and the judges and the person, the people, all of the important parties that are dealing with this in the judicial system knows. And then we're going to go to the colleges. And then we're going to go to the little groups and educate the general public. This is not, we cannot start by educating the entire the entire country about DNA analysis because we have an emergency. As we speak now, DuPont, the clinic in DuPont Road sees 40 cases a month. That's just DuPont Road. These are not the cases that are not being reported. I'm sorry, not to mention the cases that are not being reported. We cannot sit down and wait for the entire country to know what DNA analysis is while we have people being assaulted on a daily basis.
True. Thank you.
I think we start with the court and then we go to the general public.
I agree. So let's take a follow-up question from your brother, Mawata Kamara from Texas. Mr. Kamara, welcome back to the show.
Well, thank you, Mr. Moderator, for letting me back in again. I just want to come back again. You know, people that are coming out with all kinds of saying that Liberia is going to be hard for DNA to be acceptable. Implementing DNA in Liberia is going to break the society apart. Hey, guys, we've got to move forward. DNA is science. You know, it's irrefutable. Like the last caller said, it's irrefutable. It's science. You can accept it, but I think that sister should move on with this thing here. You know, she might not be the one to fully get it done, but carry the idea, like Mr. Jabate said. You know, thinking about it is good. But we can't get stuck in the 50s, 60s, 70s when the war is moving ahead. It's time. Actually, this thing is overdue. It's needed in every country in Africa, everywhere. This thing is needed, especially in the justice system. And you know, for me, I know very well we do have problems in our the judicial system. Our judges, I talk with friends in the UN in Liberia. They complain about the independence of the judges. That a lot of the judges are unqualified. They're not supposed to be whether they take bribes or all this thing. But hey, I think sister should carry on this idea, and when it comes to actually enforcing it or taking it to court, he got a group like Lawyers Without Borders. You know, these are groups that you can outreach, you know, that can actually, you know, help to advance your mission, your idea in Liberia. So I don't think there should be nothing for you. There should be nothing should stop you from carrying this to Liberia. Whatever I can do to encourage you to support it, let me know. I strongly support it. I'm a human rights advocate. I work in human rights for over 2 years, so I know how rape is a big case in Africa. So carry it. It's science. If you don't believe it, you know. But if the judicial system say that you are wrong, it's science. You know, you go to jail for it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kamara. I think what she wants you to do right off the back is to go to her website, www.healorg.com, and donate. You know, I think that's the first thing. But I'll let her come in. Ms. Kamara, go ahead. That was a comment from Mr. Kamara in Texas.
I thank you, Mr. Kamara. I was actually going to say exactly what you just said. HEALorg, www.heal.org.com. I thank you again for supporting the project. I mentioned before, and I'm going to say again, this is not. I'm going to take in everything that everybody has to say, but and this is a project that's going to move forward. And just like I've had one or two people say nay, I've had many people that say yay, and a lot of people that want to help. And if you said that this is not something that's going to work, I challenge you to come on board and watch it work with me.
Thank you. Folks, if you're just joining us, we are well over halfway mark in this show. We want to welcome you to the Liberian Diaspora Forum Weekly Talk Show. Today we have with us Ms. Mawata Kamara. She's a graduate of Temple University, a registered nurse, and a healthcare practitioner. She's passionate about bringing DNA testing to Liberia, and so she's with us tonight to talk about it. If you have any question, comment, or concern, by all means, please dial *61, and we will open up your line. We got some follow-up callers here. We'll take Abdullah Katamba. who has just made a comeback. Mr. Katamba, welcome back to the show. Your follow-up question.
Again, Ms. Kamara, I'm actually, again, I would like to say I'm impressed. But again, as I asked you earlier, I don't think, like one of the callers said, anyone's going to stop you. You're non-profit organizations. You can operate in the country. I think it's a good thing. And for some reason, you didn't answer two of the questions that I asked, but maybe it's an oversight. And I'd like to remind you again, one of the questions has to do with the cost of doing this. Is it focused on the criminal aspect, proving like rape cases, I think is relevant, but there are a lot of issues of paternity, proving that aspect, and I think that in our cultural context, everything has a cultural context. And even transplanting Western ideas into a cultural environment are quite different. I think all of us, we have to understand that. It leads to sometimes more chaos if it's not done with tact and caution. And so I wanted you to explain. So I'll be able to go on your website when I donate. I say, you know what, she understands what she's doing. But if you don't explain that, and for some oversight again, if you avoid it, then I'm concerned that I'm a traditionalist. I believe in culture. And I think it's important to understand our cultural context. Is it more benefit than more problems? The second aspect is that, do you want this to be institutionalized? Because in America, for example, issues of child support, these are institutionalized public policies. And so as a result, it is more effective when they're institutionalized. So the judges know that they have to employ that tool. Is one of the two in the toolbox. But if you just go as a non-profit organization, you're talking about it, and it does not have that impact throughout the legal system, then it becomes a dream rather than a reality. And so two questions reminder is, one is the cultural context of doing a paternity test in our country. And I think you should address how the social unrest and it could lead to some family dysfunction or crisis. The second aspect is, how is this institutionalized? Is this by a national legislature, through some laws, through some policy formulations? How is it, and how are you going to pay for it? You know, in this country, you in the United States, you're U.S. educated Liberian who knows that every policy is paid for. Even a nonprofit is paid for. How are you going to pay for a paternity test as an idea being introduced into Liberia? So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Katama.
Okay. I'm going to. I just want to clarify. I did not ignore your questions earlier. This is just kind of got lost in there. Lost in the midst of everything. One, you said the cultural context. Now, one thing that you mentioned was the paternity and how that's going to cause problem. I just want to first say that rape is causing a lot of cultural issues within Liberia communities right now. One of it being that, like I said, a child gets raped by someone within the family. That child comes out and says something, and the person stays. Now the family have a choice. Do they pick standing up for the child, or do they pick the person that raped the child? Now, a lot of times that this creates an issue, because if the mother's brother did it, now everybody has to be faced with the fact that, who they're going to pick. A lot of the times that child, because of the child, is the one that gets left out. And that child is in the home either dealing with seeing that person, like the sister earlier got very passionate and emotional about that. That child has to stay in that house and see that person every day. To me, that's a cultural issue. That's a family issue. That child is traumatized. That child has to be in that. I think we need to think in the lines of our children. These children are getting traumatized by the rapists that live within their homes, and they can't do anything about it. Please, let's think about the children. And we're thinking about paternity and proving who's the father to this child. But when that child comes to the world, we're not willing to think about ways to protect those children. Are the kids not an important part of protection of the children, not an important part of their culture? This is something that, I find troubling. I understand that in our tradition, like women, girls, yes, we mature a little. We're considered women at an earlier age than America. America, once you're 18, you're a woman, you can give consent. The law right now in Liberia says that you have to be 18 to give consent. And I am a Madingo woman. I know sometimes in the Madingo culture, girls can get married as early as 12. But we're not talking about that. We're talking about a 1-year-old being raped. That's what we're talking about. I'm not saying that it's wrong for a woman, it's right for a woman to be raped at any age. But I'm saying that I was raised in a country that said it takes a village to raise a child. That is a part of our culture. We want that village to protect the children. If you want a cultural content, that is your content. We want the Liberian people to protect their children. That's the first. Secondly, I keep hearing how is this gonna? Where's the money coming from? This I'm gonna say again. This is a nonprofit. And nonprofit get their funding to grants. They get their funding to private fundraising, which is what the organization is doing right now as I am speaking to you all. And a part of that is coming here to speak to the Liberian people, the Liberian community, to come and be a part of this project to help see it happen. And I believe the third part that you said was, what am I going to have this institutionalized? Yes, that is the goal. Eventually, once this project gets going and DNA analysis is in Liberia, we would like to use this technology to influence policy. How? What laws? How many laws it's going to influence? I cannot tell you that right now because the project's not on the floor, but it is my dream to see this process become a part of Liberian laws and the policies.
Okay, thank you. I will take one more follow-up caller, and then I will give you one text message question. Then we'll take a quick couple of minutes break so you can have a sip of water, and then we'll come back and finish the show. How's that? That
sounds great.
Okay, let's take Brother Jabata again, the only man who has promised to go on the website and donate. Thanks to you. Brother Jabata, welcome back to the Liberian Diaspora Forum Talk Show. Your follow-up question.
Thank you again. I think the concern being that where you're going to get the funding from, I think even, believe me, this project is too big for Honorable Kamara. When it starts, it is going to get funding, and she is going to be put aside as it go out because it is not. This is a universal project that you're talking about, very, very universal, and it is not controversial. It is universal, where you have a whole bunch of people talking about it, and the funding is there. I have seen, and I've seen a lot of people involved in it, and I heard that you are in the New York area. I will tell you that just to mention that we've been talking about this project for a long time, but we are not as good as you are in selling the project, and so we are happy to see you. You can come and look at one of the equipment that somebody donated to us for this project. But do not worry about the funding. Do not worry about the government taking over. Believe me, within a year, this government will jump on it because there is $1 million project you're talking about, and that is this is what they would like to operate with. We know it because look, the latest invention in this whole process is invented by somebody that already visited Liberia. You know, just to capture and hold a molecule of a DNA in solution, you know, on a nano basis and play with it. The inventor of that being to Liberia. So and then we have another Rose Scholar in England now. That's what he's working on. So this is not a small thing, and your name being printed on it. that you actually advocated for it is a blessing to the women of Liberia. So I do not like the funding go your way. If we find some avenue for grant to be written, we will let you know. But keep on pushing, and your voice and your passion for it, the passion you have for this project can be heard in your presentation. And may God bless you for you to carry it that far. Thank you. And I'm about to leave this forum because I have so much to do. Okay?
Thank you, Mr. Tabata.
Okay, Mr. Tabata, before you leave, please, again, I'm going to ask you if you can send your information to the website, or if you can leave it with the moderator in some way, shape, or form. I am in the New York area. If you want to meet with me, I can be in your office tomorrow.
We can work on that. We can work on arranging that.
We can definitely work with that. And I do not come along. I just want to let you. I have organizations in Liberia, Think Liberia being one of them, that I am working with. But again, I am open to coming and listening to what you have to say.
Okay. So, as I promised, I will take this text message question, and then we'll just take a couple of minutes only so you can get a sip of water, and then we'll come back and finish it. Here's the text message question. Where's the question again? This question really states that basically since you left Liberia so long ago, is this a way of reintroducing yourself to Liberian society so that, like many others before you, so you can be spotted for a government appointment, government position?
Oh my God. I have no political ambitions. I left Liberia a long time ago. When you go to Liberia, that's what they always say, that y'all left Liberia, y'all went to America, y'all want to come by, y'all want to do this and that and that and that. I did not leave Liberia to go on vacation. I left because of a war. I was a child. I had no control over what happened in the country, and I had no control of me leaving the country. I'm going back to Liberia, and I go there, and I see suffering everywhere, and this is the one part of Liberia that gets to my heart. That's why I'm going back. I'm not running for office. I am here. I'm doing very well for myself. I'm a nurse. I'm a travel nurse. I travel all over the country. I'm doing very well for myself. I don't need to go back and prove anything to anybody. This is an issue that touches my heart, and that's why I'm doing it.
Thank you. So we'll take a break first. We'll be back very quickly here.
They call me again.
You have a very chance. I said, I own nothing. I want bitterness, so God got more punishment for them. That ain't been my salary. Mama. I'm not Bobo. They more competition. That's why I'm advocating. But I can't tell you now how much they are competition. No slap. I slap them on their.
After every 6 years, different phases, different platforms. Some claiming to be the right one. For another year has come. Who's gonna save us? Who's gonna wipe away our tears? They got me again. From the east to the west, west to the north, from the north to the south, they got me again. From the air to the grind to the land, straight back to the sea, they got me again. That's also TMB, from overseas, coming with la degree, they got me again. Be careful who you call your leaders, cause Cause these suckers, they are so evil genius. They come me with what they never sold. Come me eat the food that a man they never cooked.
This is another hip hop classic.
Oh, na, na, na. Oh, na.
Remix. Explain. Come your lead. Got the Jojo. Rock the bucket. I got fresh on the wall. Aye. From the lead, up to me.
Everybody pot falling. My pot can ball. To end dollar. You gotta quell it all. Behold, come home.
All right, good evening, and once again, welcome to the Liberian Diaspora Forum Weekly Talk Show. We want to welcome each and everyone back to the show. We are very well close to the end of the show, and so if you haven't had a chance to ask your question, by all means, please dial *61, and we will open up your line so that you may ask your question. Tonight, we have the privilege of hosting Ms. Mawata Kamara, a graduate of Temple University with a degree in nursing and healthcare practitioner. She's here to talk to us about her initiative of trying to bring DNA testing to Liberia. We've heard a lot from her, and it's your time to have a say or ask a question. So, Ms. Kamara, welcome back to the show.
Thank you.
Thankfully, we did not lose a lot of people during the break, so that's a good thing. Now, before we begin taking questions again, let me ask you this. This whole discussion here, especially the idea of DNA testing being solely attached to issues of child rape, is a great thing. But I'd like to know, though, are there now other cases where someone raped a child and the people know for sure that this person raped this child with or without DNA testing? And if so, what has happened to those kind of people? Because you see, before DNA testing came even to the West, there were other ways that people had, other ways of indicting people. So I'd like to know, maybe if we know now, or some people that were caught in the act of raping children, if we know what happened to those people from criminal justice point of view, then we can predict what's likely to happen if someone DNA matches a child victim. So do you know of any such?
A lot of the cases that I've seen so far, from just going to Liberia from my reading and talking to a lot of the health professionals that are dealing with the issues, what happens is a child comes in, you see the physical wounds on the child. Actually, you can actually see this in the documentaries that are seen. One of the documentaries being Liberia Stolen Childhood. That was done in 2009. When a child comes to the police and says, I'm raped, there's certain things on the child that, yes, to answer your question, yes, there are certain things that we can look at on the child. As a nurse now, this is one of the things that I was trained to do in nursing school. There's certain things, and there's even after nursing school, there's classes that you can take to help you identify those things, like tearing in the vagina area, the bruises on the child. Of course, what the child tells you, and the wounds on the child's body. Those are two things that you can look at without DNA analysis to determine whether or not a child was raped. Now, the issue with what's going on in Liberia is the court system is slow. That's also part of the problem. And like I mentioned before, with some of these victims, because they're so young, by the time the case gets to court, now before that even happens, we have to deal with the police collecting the evidence. Those are all things that my organization intends to do training on, with the evidence being collected, how they're saved, because all of those things when you get to court is going to matter. All of those things, all of that process is that whole process is there, but needs to be revamped. Collecting the evidence, taking better pictures on the bruises on the child, making and recording the storyline. Now, when I went to look at some of the when I went to look at some of the clinics, and I did a touring a couple of different places when I went there. To my surprise, organization even is an issue. Like the way they store some of the files in some of the offices, they're literally stacked in Rubbermaid containers, literally. And these are cases that are supposed to go to court. They're piled in Rubbermaid containers in the office, in the corner. So those are all things that need to be worked on. It's just not, these cases, yes, there are cases, and there's ways to tell whether or not a child was raped without DNA analysis, but the problem is collecting the evidence. All of those things are things that need to be worked on. And once you actually get to trial, the problem is we know a child is raped, but the problem is who raped that child? Who raped the child? And that's the question we continue to ask.
Yeah, that's precisely what I was talking about. If, in fact, there are other cases where someone has confessed to raping a child and that person has not been prosecuted, then why should we be hopeful that when DNA testing comes and DNA proves that this person had an affair with this child, that they will be prosecuted? Right.
I don't know of any cases that someone came out and say I raped a child and the person didn't go to jail. I don't know of any cases. No.
I think ultimately the issue, the guy you and I both talked about earlier, the guy whose story is on Front Page Africa now, the one who was trying to make porno out of her children, the one who was caught videotaping having sex with.
Right. He's in court right
12
now.
children. He's in court. So I think we all need to follow that story to see what happens to somebody like that, and then maybe because if it's on video doing it, I don't think. That's anymore. You know what I mean? That's to me. That's just as good as DNA if it's on video doing it. So let's see what happens.
Exactly.
To that. Yeah.
Yes. I agree with you. That would be something to monitor.
Right. So a few housekeeping stuff here, folks. We have Mawata Kamara with us. We are just about finishing the show here. We got probably 15 minutes or so left. It's 9:44. Monday, tomorrow, first day of the week, so we're not going to keep her all night. If you haven't had a chance to have a say, to ask a question, make a comment, or raise a concern, please dial *61. Additionally, I do like to inform you that for next week, we have different kind of guests to choose from. Dim Salensa Diba, as you all know, Liberia Celebration staff, could possibly appear to talk about his bid for LFA chairmanship. And also, Brother Senior has presented someone who's a healthcare practitioner. He also wants to come and discuss some other issues in healthcare. And the chairman for Liberty Party, we are also pursuing that person. So we got quite a few people to choose from for next week. And also, I've uploaded many of our previous shows on YouTube now. I've uploaded at least 5 or 6 last night on YouTube. So by all means, if you have a chance, go to YouTube, Liberian Diaspora Forum, and you will see some of our shows, including Ganta Mayor, frank discussion about the land dispute in Nimba County, David Cody, and the list goes on and on and on. So we still have Mawata Kamara with us, and if you have any question, comment, or concern, by all means, please dial *61. We'll take your question. I have a text message question here. Let me read that to you, and the question states that DNA testing stands to benefit a lot of people in Liberia. Obviously, it's a good thing. Have you ever thought about trying to partner with some other institutions or agencies in Liberia that could possibly benefit right off the bike? Have you thought about partnering with them as a way of making it easier to bring the process to Liberia?
Yes. I have, and I am partnered with a lot of, I can give you 2 off the back. One being Think Liberia, which I mentioned before, has been dealing with a lot of rape cases. They actually were appointed by the government to deal with some of 2 of the clinics, one of them being DuPont Road. So yes, I am partnered with that organization, and when I went to Liberia, I met up with a team of nurses there as well, who's also willing to work with me with this project. So yes.
Okay. Well, we'll take a call from another caller. I believe 6105. I believe this is Anthony Zizi, but I could be wrong. 6105. Please tell us your name, where you're calling from, and your question for Ms. Kamara. 6105.
Yeah, let me begin by giving you thanks for accepting my question or comment. And also, I want to thank your guest.
What's your name? Is this Zizi?
My name is Anthony Aaron Zizi.
Yeah, welcome, Mr. Zizi. Yeah.
Thank you. And I just want to begin by giving you thanks for your program, your show, and also your guest for such a brilliant idea, DNA testing in Liberia. Normally, I like to join your show from the beginning so that I can have a clear idea regarding the subject matter. But this time, due to a lot of activity we are engaged in Minnesota, I'm telling you, living on the park. I was not fortunate to start with you, but I'm just concerned about the financial aspect of the DNA testing. We have seen people in the United States, sometimes they go to jail for years and years, and later they don't realize where after the DNA testing they were not the actual people that committed a crime. So that's one of the good things about it. But normally they go with maybe the second testing maybe result. They don't just do it one clinic or hospital. I say they do it one or two or three, so that it can be sure. Because whenever you come out with a result and the result is leading to somebody else's death, at the end, another result come out and say, no, their DNA really did not match the first one you accused. So my question to your guest is, what is the financial commitment maybe you may have? Who are the people backing you, so that at least we can't just have one area of testing? So you need to verify some of these tests. So whenever you do a DNA test, for me, you are implicating somebody. So, and we see some of these things are not really accurate. But if you get a second or third result, then at least you are sure of what you're talking about or what you are trying to accuse somebody of. Do you have more than one area that probably, or you have another area like maybe the United States after it's done in Liberia, maybe you want to send another aspect of the DNA to America just to verify?
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you for your question. Now, I'm not exactly sure where you're coming from when you say that, there's institution where you have to do a test and then you have to do a second test to verify. The lab that I want to partner, I have a contact with now is actually based in the United States, and my goal was to use this lab until we can have a lab in Liberia to use. Now, it's important to know that all of the labs in the United States that are used to do DNA analysis, especially on a criminal basis, these labs are regulated by the government. They're not just private entities that exist on their own. They're regulated by the government. There are rules and regulations they have to follow, and they follow these rules. So in order for them to stay operating, they have to follow these rules. So it is very important for us to know that. And two is, I don't know of any cases where, they did a DNA test and they had to go back again because something was wrong. And in any case, then that would be up to the reputation and validations of a lab. But the lab that I actually have a contract with is affiliated with LabCorp. So this is the one that has the reputation and it's been operating for years. So I'm not too concerned about whether or not they are valid or whether or not they will get faulty results. Now, as far as us having a DNA lab in Liberia and you're concerned about whether or not to do a second testing, I don't think that's necessary because it's a highly technical thing to do, yes. But I think by the time we have a lab there, my goal is to have the skills necessary within the country to do the lab itself. Should there be a case that we need to validate on top of the cases that we run in the lab in Liberia. I mean, that's going to be a year or two from now, God knows. But should it be a case where we need to go beyond what the labs tells us, then that'll be a whole other case. But I don't see it happening often. And not here in the United States. I can't say I've heard of any cases where it's happened before.
Okay, thank you. Well, folks, if you're just joining us, we got no time left, and and by the way, the list of next week's guests that I mentioned, I forgot to include Councilor Jallo. Councilor Jallo, what's his first name? The guy who is working with HEALORG Dual Citizenship Committee. He's also a potential guest for next week. A very renowned lawyer from Liberia who successfully sued the Liberian government. He's decided to throw his support behind dual citizenship, so he might very well be here too. We don't know yet. But if you haven't had a chance to say anything, this is your last call, *61. And I'd like to say that there are many of you here, certainly a lot more of you than the few people that have made entry to ask questions. That's a good thing. I do want you to know that Ms. Kamara came here tonight for two major reasons. One, obviously, is to discuss the subject matter, DNA testing. Like she said, she's really moved the Liberian men, have taken interest in it, that we're all talking about it. So she wants to create awareness about the good job she's working on. And the other thing, very equally so important, is fundraising. So she's going to do a closing remark shortly here. She will mention her website name, and she wants everyone to go there and look her up and see the project that they're undertaking and possibly donate. And the organization is 501c3. Deduction contribution deductible, so there's no reason why you cannot contribute. With that said, unless you have any question, and if you do, please dial *61. Otherwise, I will turn the floor over to Ms. Mawata Kamara so she can begin her closing remark, and then we will call it a night. So *61. If not, Ms. Kamara, you have the floor. Go ahead with your closing remark.
Thank you all very much. This has been an experience that I definitely learned from. I just wanted to, touch on a few things. Like you mentioned before, the reason why I came to the show is, one, to raise awareness, and two, to fundraise. I am very happy about the response that I got. I am glad that the Liberian people are interested. Be it, a negative or a positive response, I'm still interested because the buzz has started, and I hope it keeps on going. And one thing that really touched me tonight was the gentleman that kept saying the cultural approach to it. And I came into this country. I was here for 15 years, and one thing I remember, I was the vice president for the African Student Organization, the Organization of African Students at Temple University. And, when we talk about our meetings, we talk about cultural awareness and stuff like that. One thing that I always talk about being an African is the fact that it takes a village to raise a child. That is something that even people from the Western world use all the time, that, protect our children. It's important to protect our children because the children are the future. Everything that we're doing now is because of them. Because when we leave tomorrow, they're the one who's going to carry on that legacy. That I don't see how this project is not. I don't see anything more cultural than this. This is about the future. This is about our children. Our children are under attack, and protecting them is our culture. I want to make that very clear. Our children are under attack, and protecting them is our culture. And let's not walk away from that. We cannot choose one aspect of our culture, emphasize on it, and leave the other part back. The children of Liberia need us, and that's very important. That is our culture. Going back to DNA analysis, we all know what it does. We all know I'm not going to say we all know, because there are people in Liberia that don't know what it does. But the point is, we are going there not to just sit there and say we have this technology, we think it's going to work, and you're just going to have to deal with it. We're going there to educate. We're going to tell people how it's going to influence their life. We're going to start with the judicial system and work our way out. Now, I'm just asking the Liberian people to put aside the negative and work with this. Put aside the negative, what you think the government is not going to do. Let's not always turn to the government. Let's start with us and then work our way up there. Again, thank you all for listening. HEALORG, HEALORG.com is the website. My name is Mawata Kamara. You can reach me to the website. I look forward to hearing from you all.
Thank you, Ms. Mawata Kamara. Folks, we've come to the end of tonight's program. I do want to thank you profoundly for joining us tonight in spite of all the many activities taking place here in Minnesota today. Of course, there are a lot more of you calling from out of state just as they are from Minnesota. But as always, it's a pleasing pleasure to have you on here every Sunday night, sometime Mondays, to listen to what our guests have to say. So we will, as usual, we'll communicate with you, our next guest for next Sunday. And hopefully you'll join us like you did today so that we can go from there. It's been great to have you on the show. Thank you.
You very much.
And you all have a wonderful night.